Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation, folks. It is Wednesday. Yes. First, I got my sister Suzette Speaks. She's going to be joining me in a few moments. Plus, today is day 3 of the Black Men Summit. And today we're talking about Black men in education. I'm going to be joined by Dr. Steve Perry himself. I'm going to be joined by Dr. David Miller. I'm going to be joined by Anthony Pena to talk about what Black men can do to have more of a presence in the classroom. We're going to have that conversation. Plus, let's talk about the second round of voting for the new House Speaker that's happening right now. We're also going to talk about a man that was wrongfully accused, was in prison for 16 years for a crime he didn't commit, only to come out of prison and killed by police 3 years later. We'll talk a little bit about that and how Black companies are facing racial discrimination lawsuits simply because they want to help other Black folks. Yeah, that's what's happening. Folks, stay with us. Join us in the conversation. We're streaming on various platforms, but you can join us right now on YouTube on the Roland Martin's YouTube page and join us and be a part of the culture crew for the day. And stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Yes. It is Wednesday, and y'all know how we do on a Wednesdays. I got my sister from another mother joining us in a few moments. Suzette Speaks. She's going to be joining us. But folks, I encourage you to let all your family and friends know that the culture has officially started. We are broadcasting live today, and we got so much to talk about, so much ground to cover. But we also are into our day 3 of our special programming of our Black Men Summit, where we're redefining and celebrating Black manhood. Today, we're going to talk about Black men in education. So you don't want to miss that 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can join us for that conversation. But we are streaming live right now on Amazon News on your Fire TV. We're streaming right now on Amazon Prime Video. You can definitely check us out there on Prime Video. Just go to the app under Live News, Live TV, the news, or you can find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, then News. You can find us there. We're also on Freevee, so you can go check us out there on Now. Just go to say On Now to News, and boom. We'll pop right up, as well as we are on Plex TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week as well. But we're also streaming on YouTube and Facebook. So it is on Roland Martin's YouTube page. You can join us on the Culture Chat, the Culture Crew, and be a part of the chat there. So make sure you do your part and jump into the chat today. All right, let me check in. Let me do a quick roll call to all my folks that's checking in from around the country. My brother, Pastor Damon Blissett, Peace King, good afternoon. Good to see you once again. My Sister Debbie Muhammad, peace and blessings. Sister Debbie, thank you so much for checking in. Deidre, good afternoon. Hey, Deidre, thank you for checking in. Chell Kavanaugh, hello, Chell. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. We got Johnny Dona, the Annuit Coephatus. Yes, Johnny, thank you so much for checking in as well. And we got the ABX girl. I see you, ABX girl, as always. Cindy D, thank you. China Bell, I see you. Thank you for checking in. What's the tea, China Bell? You'll see the tea. We got some tea for you. Janice Thomas, thank you so much for checking in. And you don't like my music. You said, I figured you guys needed a white guy to tell y'all what's up. Just kidding. Hey, fam. You don't like my music. What's up, man? Good to see you once again. Pretty Sexy 82 Leo. Oh, my God. Here we go. Yep, here we go. Arlene, I see you. Arlene Starks. Robin Whitaker. Nicole Spicer. Conscious Thought. Y'all checking in from all across the country. So let's jump right in. Let's not waste no time. Let me bring my sister. She is the host of the Suzette Speaks show on YouTube. She is an attorney, and
hey,
I think she got a new title. Is she a contributor for the Roland Martin Unfiltered show?
Well, I appreciate that.
Lise, can we get a little something for Suzette? Can we play a little something what Suzette was bringing what kind of beef she was cooking last night on Rolling Mud Unfiltered as part of the panel. First time appearance, folks. This is her first appearance on Rolling Mud Unfiltered. And I'm so super proud of my sister and excited for her future. Take a look. Can we play that a little bit at least? Can we do that? No? Yes? Yes? Let me go give her a minute. But first and foremost, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. It's good to be among my peeps here. Culture Crew, what's up? I am excited. Thanks to you, Farajii, for this wonderful opportunity. I did get to show my face on Roland Martin's show last night as a panelist and contributor. So that was amazing. I thought I held my own a little bit, and I'm grateful again for that opportunity. But yeah, it's nothing like being home. You know what I'm saying?
It's nothing like being home. Look at that. See, you're gonna have me tearing up, man. We trying to talk about some serious issues. You feeling my heart full of joy this morning or this afternoon. Look, let me tell you, when I say I'm serious, how proud I am to see your growth and see you really stepping out there. I know that when we met, you were at one place. Now your voice is becoming an emergent voice for a lot of different things, Suzette. So you're doing a fantastic job speaking on the issues, providing analysis and giving us some context on things. But then you elevate it. You know what I'm saying? You elevating from, maybe this is what we're going to call this. There we go. Come on. Hey, come on now. Come on now. She's on with the big guy. She's on with the big man himself. Look at that.
Yeah,
can we get some sound with that?
It was great. It was absolutely a pleasure to sit with Mr. Martin and the other two panelists yesterday. And we got it going with some great topics about what was going on in Louisiana, as far as what's happening here in Florida. Of course, one of my colleagues was a guest, Chevron Jones. We just chopped it up about a number of issues. There she is. And I really...
There it is. Look at that. Hold on. Let's hear what you got to say. Who that speak? Hold on. Can we get some?
Get the numbers, and I crunched the numbers from Florida. Governor DeSantis only had a total of 4 million votes. Charlie Crist had 3.1 million in a state of 22 million people. So when people try to make the contention that this is a red state, I push back oftentimes, because if the numbers, as you stated, of minorities do come out, we can swing the entire state legislature as well as the governor's office. Now, of course, we have
all right. That's good.
Republicans in the majority in our state.
Hey, shout out to Mr. Martin. Thank you, Carol.
I like it. Look at you. You got the RMU glow.
Hey, well, I appreciate it. But like I said,
you got the RMU glow.
My culture crew, yeah, last night was fantastic. Again, great discussions, but I'm always home here. So I'm grateful again for you creating this space that, others can kind of be highlighted and share their
knowledge. All day. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about some of the things, folks. We got to talk about what's going on in Washington around the House Speaker situation. Let's talk about this wrongfully accused man that was killed by police after he was just released from prison from 3 years ago. And then there's a part of that story that I think we certainly should highlight. And let's talk about how Black companies are under scrutiny for their efforts to diversify and bring some inclusion into the workplace. So folks, stay with us. Those discussions are up next with Suzette Speaks here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Oh, man, oh, man. All right, let me bring my sister Suzette Speaks in here. Suzette, let's talk about this big thing that's happening in Washington. Something major is happening.
Yes.
Which is trying to figure out who is going to be the leader of the House of Representatives. This started, of course, yesterday it started a few days ago. When you had Representative Steve Scalise and Representative Jim Jordan as a result of the ousting of Kevin McCarthy. Steve Scalise drops out, Jim Jordan is up for consideration, but he can't secure the votes, Suzette. He doesn't get past the first round of votes. So he had to go back in and get the votes. He's trying to work. Then Hakeem Jeffries is up for consideration. He gets all of the votes of the Democrats. They're both, Hakeem had 212 yesterday. Jim Jordan had 200 yesterday. Now they got to go back. They got to lobby folks. They got to do what they try to do. Jim Jordan's got to work some more. Even Hakeem Jeffries got to work some more. Yes. But this is a very crazy situation right now because there's no House Speaker officially been made. This is the second round of votes. What's your take on all of this?
Yes, sir. When I look at this, it is actually quite shocking, again, that a man who has been a part of the tribe of Republicans that has said that the election was rigged, who has stood for the far right fringes and basically has been a bomb thrower, a fire starter, as Pete Aguilar, one of the congressmen who nominated Hakeem Jeffries both yesterday and today, pointed out. He's been in the Congress 16 years, has never passed any legislation, has never had any legislation pass through committees, because that's the first step. You have to write your bill, get it through the committee hearings, and then it goes to the floor to the entire body. He's done none of that. And now he presents himself as the Republican standard bearer. And it's quite scary because, again, if you are a part of that anarchist wing, they call themselves the Freedom Caucus, but we know they have been the bane of many speakers. The last several speakers have had to deal with this small group, 6 to 8, maybe give or take members who I heard Rachel Maddow say it this way. They're not just not interested in governing. They're interested in like burning the whole thing down and trying a new form of government, which would be autocracy, which would be one man rule, which would be the lack of democracy. I stay in power forever. Or as we look at what Mr. Trump has tried to do on January 6th, I don't listen to what the people say in elections. I make my own rules. The Justice Department, the Supreme Court, the Congress should work for me. And we don't have that here in the United States. So it's not surprising that here we are, the second round of votes, and he doesn't have the votes from his own party. we actually saw him lose votes from the first one to the second.
Right.
He's at, I think, 199 now. 22 apparently of his colleagues within the Republican caucus has said no. When I listened to the vote, I was actually watching it as it was happening. I was hearing all kinds of names, people who had not been even nominated before, anybody but him. And I just want us to really understand what's happening. How do we see their party nominate someone who has been such a fringe person of fringe thought, fringe beliefs, right on the outskirts of this is not how we want a leader to be, and then basically through his bullying, put him front and center to run the whole entire thing. Sir, you didn't even believe in the whole entire thing. You tried to overthrow.
See, that's the crazy part about this, Suzanne.
So seeing him at this stage, it's still mind-boggling to me that others have not said maybe we could go for someone more moderate. Steve Scalise didn't have the votes. He took himself out. Patrick McHenry, who is the pro temp, right? The temporary speaker. Others are saying, let's hold on to him and just increase his powers, right? But while this is all happening, there is no funding. Remember, Congress is one of their biggest jobs is to make the budget and appropriate money. While this is all happening, there's no votes happening, right? There's no governing happening because they're at a standstill without this leadership. If they don't decide to do, like I said, the latter, which is give the pro temp a more power so that business can take place, the people's business, what's going on in Israel, what's going on in Ukraine. Monies are necessary. We have to be able to govern. And this is not a good sign. This is number 2. It took Kevin McCarthy 15. So we'll see how many it will take this gentleman if he actually is successful.
Real quick, what's your take on what's the likelihood you think Hakeem Jeffries is going to come to the top?
I was looking at the numbers and I'm just thinking, how can we get those 6? Because again, 218 in a full body, it's you win by majority of those voting present, right, who were in that room in the chamber at the time. So I'm thinking, are there 5 Republicans who would rather shoot themselves in the foot than go in the direction of an extremist like Jim Jordan? I don't know if they're willing to go that far because it could cost them majorities in the House. Well, you do have 18 districts that went Republican who also voted for Joe Biden. They're the ones that are kind of holding the line and saying, you're a little bit too radical for us. We go back to districts that, again, flip-flop. They vote one way for their congressional person and they vote another way for president. So you, sir, are on the far right and your politics doesn't match where my district stands for. So I don't know if they'll go as far as to step into the other side of the arena. But crazier things have happened. We haven't seen this in 100 years, and never has a vote has happened to remove the speaker, but we have never seen it successful. So I don't put anything past the possibility.
No. Well, look, I'm in full agreement there. I won't put anything past these folks. Yeah. We might, if you're talking about that getting those 6 votes for Hakeem Jeffries, you might have to appeal to those quote unquote traditional Republicans, right? Not these new Republicans, the traditional Republicans, but they're slowly moving away out of the party, and I'm talking about the John McCains, the Mitt Romneys, those guys, you know what I'm saying? Those traditional Republicans. I forgot the other Republican, he dropped out. I think he's from Texas, but he was not a fan of Trump by any means. So you're talking about a whole different situation here. So it is going to be interesting. And I think just for the purpose of this process, this is probably where we need to have a different conversation about either the Constitution or the rules that govern the House, the rules that govern Congress, to be a little bit more explicit, because the rules that govern the Congress right now is so wide open. It's just like it leaves a person like a Jim Jordan to slide through it, even though they're trying to destroy the current government system, but it leaves open that door for them. So I think this is, when this all is said and done, when a decision has been made, I'm serious. There's going to have to be some deeper conversation about the very founding principles of this country, the founding rules that we use to govern, because we're in an uncharted territory. We've never seen a situation where not never, in recent modern day American history have we seen a party that represents a threat to the system it was supposed to uphold. The way the Republican Party, as it stands right now in 2023, that's the position the Republican Party takes right at this point. Like, you are slowly becoming the threat. People say Donald Trump, but he's a part of the party. And if the party keeps falling in line with his ideology or with this very extreme ideology, then now the party is going to be found guilty of siding with a situation that is not even helpful. And I can only imagine your traditional Republicans probably are like, what the hell is going on at this point?
I know we got to take a break. Not all Republicans are created equal, but they have allowed space for these fringe people to take hold. That's their problem. I probably disagree with the rules.
They're scared of them.
It's within that party.
Very quickly,
there's no consensus candidate.
And guess what? They're scared of them. They're physically scared of them.
They are.
Because political violence is very real. It can happen here in America. We've already seen it. But they're scared. And it's a hell of a place for this country to be in. Look, we got to take a quick pause when we come forward. Let's talk about some of the other big headlines. And of course, we're going to get you prepared for the upcoming day 3 of the Black Men Summit as we talk about Black men in education. Stay with us. Still got a lot to cover here on the first half of The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Got my sister, Suzette Speaks, host of the Suzette Speaks Show on YouTube and attorney in the state of Florida. We're talking a little bit about some of the big conversations, the big headlines, but I want to kind of get some crew members' comments on this situation happening with the House Speaker, Suzette, because they're making some dope analysis on this whole thing. Cindy D, my sister, you said we never had to worry about this before, Farajii. Most lawmakers knew the rules and understood them. They upheld the system until Trump came to office. The party never went this far before.
Yes, I agree with that. He has ushered in a new and mainstreamed a new ideology, which allows for this extremist wing to feel emboldened and empowered and to bully the more moderate people, as you call them, the traditional Republican folks, into submission. Because what happens, Farajii, is that 6 vote, the 6 people or 8 people can hold any legislation hostage. You need them to be able to govern. So beyond the speakership, when you have bills come forward, you got to have them buy in to get things passed. So they are not letting go. They are not. There's no sense of let me back down with them. They just keep pushing ahead. And someone on the more traditional side or the more moderate side has to call them on it, or, you know, kind of takes them to task with it so that they get called out and they're not able to kind of just this very small subset kind of ruin it for everybody, ruin it for the country. In fact, it is not their entire party. It's just this kind of rogue element that is much more far right in their thinking, and they want to burn everything down. But the moderates, I'm like, how would I play this if I was them? You've had other speakers, John Boehner, Paul Ryan, even Newt Gingrich, as far back as they have no
power.
They were sneaking up, but they ignored this. They marginalized these people to the fringes. They didn't give them committees. They didn't give them titles. They didn't put them in places of leadership. Jim Jordan runs Judiciary Committee, and look at those hearings. If you ever watch the Judiciary Committee, it's almost like, what are we doing? It's a fantastical circus, even according to his own fellow far-right member, Matt Gaetz, says that Jim Jordan don't know how to run that particular committee, which has a lot of power. The actual bills go through judiciary hearings, that committee hearings, before it gets to the floor. So, yeah, I think how they've dealt with it, there's no one person or coalescing of a group of people that have been able to stop them. The people who tried, like a Liz Cheney, they were primaried. They ran people in their races and funded those people and got them out. So everybody who wants to speak up is, like you're saying, intimidated by them. And so in order to save their own spaces in Congress, they're not going as far as to call them out. But I guess these few, 22 individuals that have been voting for other people are trying to make a stand, but we'll see how far they can take it.
Absolutely. Pretty Sexy 82 Leo, you checked in, and good to hear from you. You said Republicans are so wishy-washy in these situations. Absolutely. They're wishy-washy, but guess what? When they're wishy-washy, we're the ones left out to dry.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? As the American people. Great point. You are not a victim. You checked in and you said if the Dems wanted to protect the system, all of them wouldn't have voted to remove Speaker McCarthy.
Well, they support. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's what I was going to ask. Well, I mean, what would you expect them to do? Do you think that and I think this was CNN. I think I saw this either on CNN or New York Times, but they were saying like they do have, I think CNN posted this story saying the Democrats have a plan to make the Republicans pay at the ballot box. I saw this story and I was just like, they have a plan. According to this piece from CNN, they do have a plan. Like, yeah, we're going to take him down, but we got something else that's coming down the pike as well. How should the Democrats have responded in that moment? You think they made the right decision?
Of course. It is not for them to get the Republicans' house in order. It did expose a weakness. Those 6 and 8 people have more power than the darn speaker. The speaker had to literally sell his soul and put the rules, change the rules, because each speaker gets to adopt a new set of rules. And one of the negotiating tools he got to become speaker after 15 rounds of voting was to allow one person to call the question, one person to be able to file the motion to vacate and bring it to the floor. Now, I don't know who would want to do this because, again, this group pushes so much fringe ideology, and they get their way because there's enough of them to stop the vote if they wanted to. It's not for Dems to correct that. That's for Republicans to do.
And you're not the only one that says that. Yes, Cindy said the same thing. She said it's not the Democrats' job to save McCarthy. His own party needed to save him. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sean Ryan, you checked in and said, politics is crazy. Imagine owning a business and then firing the head contractor, etc., and have no one to replace them. The business would fail. Yeah, they didn't have
other workers for not picking a contractor that no, doesn't work.
First, so they didn't have a succession plan. Like, all right, we're gonna move McCarthy out and we're gonna put this person in. They didn't talk about this in the beginning before this all went down.
The Democrats are playing the long game. We are looking at it.
No, I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm talking about Republicans.
Okay, yes, no, they didn't have any, and the Democrats knew it. That's why they exposed them. Emperor has no clothes. Y'all acting like tough guys. That there are people who are willing to lead and put country over party, but there aren't any. These folks have been allowed to hijack the agenda in every sense of the word. You need them to pass legislation. They are holding anybody who runs for speaker hostage by the same possible rules to get people on board. Do you know what he's going to have to do? Jim Jordan, he might fall victim to his own medicine at the end of the day. So maybe they'll put him in there for a short-term, stint just to get the government moving again, and then motion to vacate him. Who would trust this person who has shown himself, again, to have the ideology of the far minority of Republicans that we say, wanted to literally overturn an election, has never apologized for it, and firmly believes that, and then put him, again, that's their house. They're in control. They have the majority. Crazy. And they are thinking about putting that same man in control as speaker. Man, that's crazy. It's unfathomable. It's crazy.
Jeanette, you checked in. Jeanette Davis, you said Jordan deserves to fail. His efforts to create chaos has backfired on him. Thank goodness. Well, we're only in the second round. This thing can go for a minute now, Jeanette. But I hear you, and I feel you. His efforts are creating a bunch of chaos. It is firing back on his ass. And at this point, he has to, you never piss where you lay your head at, right?
He don't want to build consensus, but now he need consensus. Who you going to talk to?
That's what I'm saying. Like at the end of the day, these folks that want to try to reform the government, transform the government, make it more authoritarian, make it more this and make it more that, they're running up against a wall. You see what I'm saying? And the more and more this is actually happening, this is what I'm saying, Suzanne. The more and more this is actually happening, the more this emboldens people to believe in the idea of full representation, believe in the idea of we need to make sure that there are checks and balances within every institution of government. It's making people want to learn more about their government. Because now we see the threat. That's what I'm hoping it is. I think it's doing it in some spaces, but it's going to embolden us to say, wait a minute, hold up. The government acts like this. I mean, we can't talk about it today, but it's like Justice Amy Coney Barrett yesterday, I read a piece from NPR that says that she's in full support of an ethics code for the Supreme Court. Like, people are starting to wake up and be like, man, this is some straight madness. Like, yes, the government has a lot of flaws, but at the same time, we're all our political understanding and knowledge is actually increasing because of all of the other stuff that's coming down. We see that certain type of people are getting into office now. We see what kind of rules and regulations are serve as the foundation for a lot of these institutions. So people are kind of pushing back because they're like, wait a minute, hold up, this is going on too far. This is too far.
We have to hold them accountable. Again, the Republicans have to hold their own Republican Party colleagues accountable. I don't understand how giving the keys to someone like Jim Jordan strengthens their cause. And there's 22 of them, at least today, that has sense enough to look at it and say, wait a minute, what are we doing? Are we strengthening the far right bullies? And now our party is kind of dipped into, their paint forever is covering us. Why are we pushing ourselves in that direction? How can we kind of pull ourselves back? But I know we have to take a quick break. So let's do that and see.
That's definitely something that we'll certainly keep our eyes on it. And of course, hopefully some type of decision may be made today. Folks, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about this very, very horrific case of a man who was wrongfully accused, sent to prison for 16 years, only to come back home and 3 years later get shot and killed by police. I'm gonna share with you there's one element of this story that I think that needs to have focus on. We'll talk about that on the other side. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now. We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Got my sister Suzette Speaks with me. All right, let's talk about this case, Suzette. This case really struck a chord with me because it was like, damn. That's all I kept thinking, just damn. This is the story of Mr. Brother Leonard Cure, who was 53 years old. He was convicted of armed robbery back in Florida in 2003, according to the Broward County State Attorney's Office. But then in 2020, he was the first person to be exonerated as part of the State Attorney Office's conviction review unit after a reinvestigation of the case found he was innocent. So he did 16 years in prison. Since his release, he's been working a job in security. He had hoped to go to college and work in broadcast radio production, and he was buying his first home, according to the state's attorney. Things took a turn for the worse, Suzette, on Monday when he was pulled over for a traffic stop. And apparently, according to the report, the officer asked him to get out of the car at the deputy's request, and he complied with the commands until learning he was under arrest, according to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. This happened on I-95 down in the state of Georgia. He refused to comply with the, and I'm looking at this middle part here, folks. He refused to comply with the deputy's request after that, and the deputy used a taser. Cure assaulted the deputy, prompting the deputy to use the taser for a second time and a baton, but Cure still did not comply, authorities said. The deputy then pulled out a gun and shot Cure. He was treated by EMS and died later, according to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. This is a very, very sad story, right? A couple of things come to my mind very quickly. It's like when you go and you fight a war at another country only to come home and something violent or tragic happens to you when you come home. You can go through war. You can go through dealing with all of that other stuff on the other side of the water. But then you come home and you still cannot truly escape the warlike terror that exists within our community, right? Whether it's in our relationship with police or whatever other elements, whether it's our relationship with each other, you still have this situation. But there is something about this story that I think that we need to talk about. What did you hear from this, Suzette?
I've been following this case very closely, Farajii. This case made headlines here in South Florida. Y'all know I'm in Miami, up north, just north of us, Broward County, right? The largest city in the county seat is Fort Lauderdale. This took place there. Now, imagine a man, Mr. Lenny Cure, being in jail for 16 years and was wrongfully convicted. Now, we have something called the Innocence Project that worked on his case, but shout out to the first Black man in Florida to be elected as the state prosecutor. Remember what prosecutors or state attorneys, as they're called, do. They prosecute people who break the law of the state, right? So we had our first one elected in Broward County, Florida, Harold Pryor. In full disclosure, colleague of mine, I've worked on events with him. But what he's done, and this is why, again, the ballot box is so powerful and who we put in office, we are the stopgap. We are the accountability measure. He now was able to institute within his office something called the Conviction Review Unit. Just looking at what they dug up about this case, there was, in fact, a ATM receipt that put this gentleman completely in another location from where he was accused and then convicted of being. There was also faulty lineups where his picture was used more than one time in the lineup. When the state attorney, Harold Pryor, and his team reviewed it, they were like, there is no way this man was rightfully convicted. They had it overturned. He ended up getting even a bill passed in Florida. You have to get, when you're suing the state legislature, to pass a bill if it exceeds, I believe it's $100,000. He received a settlement, $817,000. I don't know if that's enough.
Did he get that money already? Did he already get that compensation?
He purchased a home with it and was looking to live his life. However, again, just the irony of this, the statements you read were according to what the police said happened. We haven't seen video. I don't know if there is an existing video so far. But the fact that at the hands of government, not just an accident, a tragic accident, at the hands of government, he was in Florida visiting his mom, returning to his home in Georgia, headed up 95, and was stopped. And for this to happen in just 3 years after being fully exonerated, it's just tragedy doesn't even begin to explain. And that's why when I think about how much more of a penalty Black folks pay, we are more likely to be wrongfully convicted. We are more likely to suffer penalties when we come out after being exonerated, etc., as he has paid the ultimate price in an altercation, according to what police say, his resistance. We don't know. And he's not going to tell us what happened. So again, this is the most tragic ending for someone whose freedom was robbed from him for 16 years. Thankfully, a prosecutor, a state attorney who is focused on not only seeking justice, but restorative justice for when people are wrongfully convicted. That's why who sits in those prosecutorial offices matters. It takes me into, again, where we have been in Florida, where 2 Democratic prosecutors have been suspended by Ron DeSantis, right? Monique Worrell up in Orlando, Osceola County, and the gentleman who is in Tampa. And again, they're trying to right now, Farajii, I just want to highlight the other move they're trying to make from our state legislature, and there are hearings that are going on right now. Governor put together through the Florida House of Representatives, a committee to consolidate our circuits. There are 20 court circuits.
That's crazy.
And right now, they are even proposing to move them down to 6. Thinking about the access to courthouses, thinking about the access to knowing who your judges are, who your prosecutors are. Right now, when we have meetings, our prosecutor and our public defender come. If you stretch out the districts to include 10 and 15 counties in one, where your police force, your judiciary doesn't really represent the culture and the moral what can I call it? I want to be very careful as an attorney, but just the ideas and the life experiences of where they are going to be administering. It's very dangerous, and we have to press. There are hearings right now. If you live in Florida, you can jump on Zooms. I think there is one coming up, and they're going to report back to the governor and make recommendations to consolidate where there are states bigger than us or as big as us, California, that have tons more circuits, not less. Same thing with Georgia, has less people, but more circuits. And instead, why? They want to remove even the prosecutors that are Democratic leaning altogether. And even Republican prosecutors and state attorneys who are elected, for example, in Jacksonville and other places, most of them are against this. This makes entirely no sense because
let me just jump in.
I'm sorry, but this is a big.
No, it's all good. No, there's a lot of big issues, and I know we got like a moment left, but there are a couple of things. One, let me get a couple of comments from the crew. ABX girl, you said I knew someone from the military, and they felt safer in Middle East combat than in the USA. Wow. Brother Willie, you checked in. Willie Frazier, you said under arrest for what? The last thing I heard, Suzette, on this particular case, they're still trying to determine
why he was being stopped in the first place.
They didn't know what the traffic stop was for in the first place. So that's the big question that's going to be guiding the investigation. But here's the thing, though. This is something I think that is paramount, which is that when Black men or any person comes out of prison, especially being wrongfully accused, that does something to your mind, that does something to your heart and to your spirit, right? So you already felt a great deal of injustice. Mentally, nobody checked the mental health of this brother. And here's why I'm saying this. Because the moment that that cop said you are under arrest, imagine you coming out of prison being wrongfully accused. You trying to move forward from that part of your life. You trying to build a new future for yourself and your family. And somebody pulls you over for a traffic stop. And guess what? You can snap. I bet you that black man snapped because he was in a space that he was like, I am never going back to prison. I've done my time. And the sad part is, and I'm getting emotional just thinking about this, I can only imagine in his mind what was going through this. Like you got through that, and then you gonna pull me over and you say you under arrest for a traffic stop? Oh no. He probably said, oh hell no. I'm not going back in.
Why are you arresting me? Why are you pulling me over? And there is no correct answer.
There's no explanation. See, he can't look. He went to prison for 16 years. Like his mind has to become readjusted. 3 years is not enough time to relieve the burden of prison life after 16 years and after that portion of your life is gone. I bet you that brother snapped. I mean, this is my personal speculation. I don't think that it's just the fact that he's trying to move on. Then you got to be re-traumatized again. It was probably very triggering for that black man to say, oh, you're under arrest again. And then you give no reason why. That would trigger a man. That would trigger a man. And I'm not saying that he's justified in hitting a police officer. I'm just saying, just like we always have these conversations about police officers, they all have bad days too. Well, guess what? So do black people. And when black people, when we have gone under the tyranny and oppression of injustice for so many years, and you tell us we're going back into this condition, please. Some of us literally said, and Suzanne, as we close, I know it. Some of us probably have literally said to ourselves, I'd rather die than go back into prison because I ain't do nothing wrong. This is some BS. I bet you. I want
to see this fully investigated. I would just put it out there. We need to see where the facts, hopefully if there's video, Georgia Bureau of Investigation needs to get involved.
There it is.
This is just such a tragic end for a 53-year-old black man who was just trying to move on, as you stated.
As I stated. Suzette Speaks, y'all can check her out on all social media platforms. Follow her on her show on YouTube. Subscribe to her page on YouTube. Suzette, we thank you. I know the time is cut short, but we thank you for being here with us. You probably need some extra time to recover from last night's appearance on Roland Martin's show. But we thank you so much for all of your dynamic work, insight, and analysis, sis. And again, we're so proud of you here on The Culture. And God willing, we'll reconnect with you next week.
I appreciate you. I'll be watching. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's have that conversation. Day 3 of the Black Men Summit, where we're redefining and celebrating Black manhood. We're talking about Black men in education. Joining us will be Dr. Steve Perry, Dr. David Milia, and Anthony Pena. And of course, you stay with us. The Black Men Summit will be next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome to the Black Men Summit here on The Culture on the Black Star Network, where we're talking about redefining and celebrating Black manhood. I'm your special guest. When I say special guest, I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in. Folks, we are going to have This is day 3 of our fantastic summit. Over the past 2 days, we've been talking to Black men from across the country to give us some insight and analysis and some hope and solutions as well about some of the areas that Black men are struggling in right now. And today will be no different from that. We are going to continue this conversation. We wanted to have a discussion about where we are with the state of education of Black America. And so we wanted to do our part to bring some dynamic voices to this discussion, Black men who are leading the way in making sure that other brothers and sisters and our communities and our families are all gaining from this situation and this system of education. So without further ado, we want to welcome our very special guest here today. We are joined by Dr. Steve Perry, who serves as the educator, he's author, and he's founder of Capital Prep Schools. My brother, it's always good to see him here on the Black Star Network. Brother Steve, thank you so much, sir, for your time this afternoon.
Thank you so much. I'm truly honored to be part of this conversation.
Absolutely. Also joining us is Anthony Pena, who is an educator and activist. He has been working with young people and Black boys in particular in underserved communities for the past almost a decade now that he's been doing that incredible work. Brother Anthony, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Thank you, Brother Farajii. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. And then in a few moments, we should be joined by, if I'm not mistaken, Brother David Miller. He's going to be coming and joining us. We're going to be checking in with him as he serves as an educator and author and founder of the Dare to Be King curriculum. Dr. Perry, let's start with you, big brother. When we talk about this issue of Black men in education, there are a lot of ways we can handle this conversation. So I'm going to start here. When do you think that it happened when we started to see a decline and in some cases, a removal of Black men from the school system? Some people would go as far as to say that it was during that landmark decision of Brown versus the Board of Education, that once schools started to become more integrated, that we started to see something change within the culture of education of Black children, but more importantly, we started to see something different in the administration of education from for Black teachers. What's your take on that, big brother?
Again, thank you so much for having the conversation because it's so important. But it's a bigger conversation than even the Brown versus Board of Education. Black men were never intended to be full participants in what we refer to as formal education. In fact, it was never supposed to be something that we were supposed to have had access to. From the time of slavery, the expectation was that if you taught the men in the community to read, those men would rise up and recognize that they, in fact, were human. And so the formation of what we refer to as public education was designed in many ways to indoctrinate people of color. The first public school that's on record was not 1635 classical in Boston, but 1634 in a school in the Maryland area that was founded by white settlers to indoctrinate Native people. So if you fast forward all the way up through Brown versus Board of Education and up through 1968 in New York, where they had the strike, there have been consistent efforts to limit access to education, both from a student perspective and from a professional perspective. Continue all the way up through now. Those of us like myself who seek to start our own schools are constantly met with the aggression of the white establishment, whose singular goal is to make sure that we don't get ourselves in a position to do well in school or to run our own schools within which we can do well. I'll take it one step further. If you imagine this, that in 2021, only 5% of all Black students who took the ACT passed all 4 sections and would otherwise be deemed as college ready. That means that the intentions of the system to make sure that Black people do not succeed in it have been met.
Wow. I want to get what's your take on that, Brother Anthony? Kind of following what Dr. Perry is putting out there, then I'm going to share something in that, because I think, Dr. Perry, you definitely are touching something. Brother Anthony, what's your take on it, bro?
And Dr. Perry's a pastor right here. He hit it right in the mark. We're not meant to be in the classroom. That's why we saw Black men, Black students place special education on purpose, right? On track to get them back because of the behaviors, quote unquote, where they're not culturally competent in their areas, or they feel like the institution of learning feels like Black students, and males in particular, are different, and therefore we got to treat them differently. And so there's never been an aspiration for me personally. My first Black male teacher was in college when I went to Georgetown University. So for me, I didn't know that was a possibility to be education, because all I saw were female teachers, or Black female teachers in particular, or white males. So for me, it was never an aspiration until somebody else sat me down and was able to mentor me, and then I saw myself coming to education. So we see the battle here continuously. We look at suspension data, we look at learning disabilities. It's targeted against Black male students continuously, and we see that in the spectrum a lot. And so it's a correlation between they don't want us in the classroom, and they definitely don't want us to teach true education. The reason a lot of people do not like education, quote unquote, is because they don't feel seen or heard in the classroom. So when there's a differing opinion on a viewpoint, they told that young man to be quiet, or there's some things that we might think differently and it's shunned upon. So a lot of times we become disvalued from the system because we feel like nobody understands what we believe in, and therefore we're almost criticized for believing something differently than what the, as Ruby Payne talks about, middle class norms. Learning is really based on and rooted in middle class norms, particularly white education. And if you remember, education foundation of this country was founded on white male landowners, and so only if you're a white male privileged you went to school. So there's never been for other people that said white males, and then in particular definitely not Black students, because they're in slavery, we're not allowed to read or write. So therefore this has been long-standing culture in America where Black men do not belong in education because it was designed for white men.
And I want to go back to the point that you made, Brother Steve, about this, because it sounds like we need to really have a different conversation. I'm saying we as Black folks, we as Black America need to have a different conversation about the importance of education. I was reading this piece with this brother named Sharif El-Mekki, who serves as the CEO of the Center for Black Educator Development, which is a prominent teacher pipeline that pushes for educational diversity in public schools. He was having this conversation, and he said this, and Lisa, let's put up quote number 3 on the screen, please. This is what he said. He said, there's this naive notion that school is a safe space for Black youth, and it's not. He said, when we talk to Black educators, it's not only that they often experience racism from their colleagues and supervisors as professionals, but they also remember when they experienced something similar as a child. But the effect is that now they're trying to protect children and work against policies and mindsets that are racist. So that's the trifecta. I'm experiencing this as a professional. I remember that as a child. And now I'm also having a classroom full of students, and I want to push back against that. Would you agree with that, Brother Steve? That is that trifecta?
Yeah, Brother El-Mekki is a solid cat. And let's just take it even one step further. There are very specific reasons as to why there are very few Black men teaching. And it's by design. Like hires like. What that means is if the overwhelming majority of those people who teach are white and female, then what they think is worthy of continuing the work that they're doing is someone who they think is someone who's like them, who makes them feel comfortable in themselves. And so like hires like. Why is that important? It's important because the largest employer in virtually every municipality, largest public employer in virtually every municipality, is their public school system. So their public school system is employing typically white women. And they're not about to give up access to great jobs, to African-American men in particular, African-Americans in general. And as a result, in most communities nationwide, African-Americans make up less than 5% of the teaching population, and Black men make up about 20% of that. So this is not by accident. The teachers' unions, which are overwhelmingly white and female, the many people who are the Democrats who support them, who keep these policies in place, that in most cases make it harder for Black men to be teachers because we struggled in the classroom, not because we struggled, but they struggled with us. Then the tests that they give us to become certified are consistent with if you had stayed in class. And then they create a like issue, which is even if you become certified, you do all the things you need to, you're liable to end up in front of a panel of white women who are going to say, I just don't see as a culture fit.
Wow.
It's a very clear process that leads to this ultimate end. It's not by mistake. It's intentional. So when brothers like me say, hey, all right, cool. I want to work at your school. I want to start my own school. I'm good. Just let me start my own school. He's privatizing education. He's taking money away from the public. They will do everything to malign brothers like me who say, no. You don't want us in our schools. You're gonna suspend, expel, and discipline Black boys at a rate higher than any other group. So just give them to me. No, you can't have them because then that means I won't have one of these good jobs. So you can't take them because I need them to keep my job. You can't start your own schools because I needed to keep my job. So you just figure it out.
We got to take a quick pause. I want everybody to marinate on that. And then, Anthony, I want to get your take. We're going to be bringing my other brother, Dr. David Miller, into this. Folks, join us in the conversation. You hearing what we're up against here in terms of the educational space. And I would love to hear from you, crew, as to what do you think we should do and how we should move forward in making sure we get more Black men into the classrooms and into educational leadership roles. Join us in the conversation. We're streaming right now live on YouTube on the Roland Martin's YouTube page. Join the chat, be a Culture Crew member for the day. And of course, stay tuned. We still got a lot more to chat about with Dr. Steve Perry, Anthony Pena, and Dr. David Miller right here on the Culture's Black Men Summit, where we're redefining and celebrating Black manhood right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Culture's Black Men Summit. We're talking about Black men in education, and joining me has been Dr. Steve Perry, who is an educator, author, and founder of the Capital Prep Schools. We thank Dr. Perry for joining us this afternoon. We're also joined by my brother Anthony Pena, who is an educator. He's an administrator. He served as assistant principal at a number of schools in Baltimore, and he is on his way to getting his doctorate as well as he's moving forward in his journey. And I want to make sure we got my other brother, Dr. David Miller, who is joining us. He's an educator, he's an author as well, and he has founded the Dare to Be King curriculum, which is teaching Black boys how to think higher of themselves. So again, I want to thank my brothers for joining us. Let me start with you, Brother David, because I want to get you into the mix of these things. When we talk about education, and as much as we do talk about, I know all three of y'all have heard the talk. I want to know for real, from all y'all brothers, do you think Black people really care about education in 2023? Or is the role of the teacher just one of a babysitter? I mean, do we have a vested interest? Do we see education the same way that, say, our grandparents see education, or even some of our parents have seen education? Brother David, I'm going to start with that question with you. What's your take, brother?
So unequivocally, I think Black parents and the Black community is vested in figuring out ways to ensure that our children get a world-class education. I think the challenge becomes you bump into systems, and as Dr. Perry and Brother Anthony were talking about, oftentimes parents become overwhelmed with trying to navigate a system that doesn't always demonstrate its love, particularly for Black and brown children. And so a lot of times you do see some apathy at the community level and at the part of parents, because you're bumping into a system, whether you have a child who has special needs or whether you have a child that's being bullied in school. When it comes to parents trying to come up to the school, trying to intervene, you often see a clash. And so it's not that the Black community is not vested in school or vested in ensuring our babies get a great education. The challenge is some people will argue that the system is broken. Others will argue that the system is designed to perpetuate itself and to create a permanent underclass. Whichever way you fall on that continuum, we have to do a better job of disrupting the system. And some of the ways that we can disrupt the system is by creating efforts like Brother Sharif in Philly to recruit, retain, and train more Black male teachers. But then we also need more Black school-based mental health professionals. So it's not just teachers. We need more trained, skilled folk who understand our children from a mental health perspective, from a community perspective in the schools. We need more school nurses, because there doesn't seem to be a shortage of, school police or local police patrolling schools, but those essential adults, those essential professionals that we need in the building to support the work that the teachers are doing is something that we really need to focus on.
And that's a different approach, Brother Anthony, when we're talking about not just getting teachers, but you need a support staff. You need an infrastructure of support for Black boys, and particularly for Black boys and girls. I know personally that as an educator and as one who's have served in that capacity of not just teaching in the classroom, but also serving as a guidance counselor in a lot of ways. And you have experienced great loss, because some of the students that you have mentored, some of the students that you have watched grow up, their lives are taken by the street life. So talk to us about that experience, and more importantly, why and how we can create a structure of care and support for our students.
Absolutely, Farajii. And as Dr. Miller said, young people now are facing more odds than we ever faced before. The reality is we're fighting social media. We're fighting the ideas in the community that are anti-Black at times, but also we're fighting among ourselves. There's a clash between what we need, what we deserve, and our young people are suffering. They're suffering greatly. In the last 3 years, I have lost 37 students that I know personally that I've mentored to gun violence here in Baltimore. And It's to the point that I stopped going to funerals, and just when I get the call at midnight at 12:03 or 1:30 in the morning, I already know what it is. It's not a positive thing. And unfortunately, 8 hours a day out of 168 hours in a week, 40 hours a week at best, maybe 47 hours in some schools, maybe 50, that's not enough time to help our young people out. And our young, and particularly the last couple of years, the most increased number of suicide has been among Black males. Yeah. And so we have this pandemic of COVID, but we never talk about the pandemic of mental health. Our young boys in particular are in pain, and hurt people. So when we want to criticize young people picking up a gun, we don't talk about what caused a young man to pick up a gun or knife to harm somebody else. There's pain in there a lot of times. And so we have to really look at how, as Dr. Miller said, how can we get school counselors We're not just there to service kids academically, but guide them in the right way. And we have the right people, the right that do not put them in situations worse. Go ahead, Farajii.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, brother. I definitely agree with you. And Dr. Perry, you know, by us creating that infrastructure or putting that type of investment, do we, quote unquote, cripple Black men? Because, you know, I think that we're also, and I'm gonna just use the term from traditional feminism, where, you know, we're the patriarchal system that we are all a part of encourages us to stay stoic, to remove any type of emotions, to not feel pain. But now we're trying to turn the tide and shift the culture so where people do care. If Brother Anthony has lost 37 students to gun violence, and each day students got to go to school, life goes on, but there hasn't been a grief process, there hasn't been a processing period. It seems like it's asking a lot for a black male teacher to come into a system and to carry that great burden.
You know, I want to start with the first part of the question I heard you ask. I heard you ask if Black parents still care about education. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, there's some wild acting parents who come up and lose their whole damn mind. Yeah. But that's not because they're Black. It's because they're wild. But do they care? Parents who are Black are the ones taking a risk on a school that was opened in a strip mall. Parents are the ones who will take a risk on a brand new school or put their kids on multiple buses and take the risk of actual prison just to get their kid to a good school. The problem is that they have to accept that it's probable that the school won't like their child if he's a Black boy, and that they're spending an inordinate amount of time at the school fighting the school. And so they come in with their dukes up. So there's an inherent an earned lack of trust that our community has towards even me, our schools, because they look and they're like, "Are you just like one of them?" Because generation after generation after generation has been done wrong by what we refer to as schools. Continue down that road. So then when brothers do come into the classroom, the nurse's office, which is, I've never seen a Black male nurse in any schools that I've ever been affiliated with ever. Social workers, and on and on and on. We don't get to just do the job that we're hired to do. If you're a Black man who's teaching English, you don't get to just be the Black man teaching English. And I don't care if you're at a college, if you're an African-American man on an educational campus, you have to be, in many cases, more than you could even truly be. So the burden is so significant because in large part, many of our young men do not have enough men who are Black around them to recognize that we're men and we just feel differently. We respond to certain circumstances differently. So what ends up happening is the role and response to life that many young men have is narrowed so much that they think that the only emotion that they can have is rage. And the only way that they can show that is to be violent. And so because there are so few Black men in the ecosystem that our young boys can connect to, and because our parents come in not trusting us, and rightly so, even those of us who are in the system do so as usually the one who's fighting the distrust of mom and the limiting of the emotional language of the boy.
And very quickly, Dr. Perry, how do you break that down? If you see parents coming into your school and they have their dukes up, they got their blinders on, they got their walls up, how do you start to break that down?
It depends, to be completely frank with you. Sometimes they're in too hot, so that's not easy. But when they do come, beginning to say, "Sis, I hear you, Mom, I get it." Try to show humility, try to show respect, hear them out, let them say what it is that they need to say, let them be heard, once they start to repeat themselves, once they start to use cuss words and threats, then you got to stop the conversation.
Right.
But until they get to that point, let them, as the phrase goes, punch themselves out. Let them say what it is they need to say, because they're afraid. If you are the mother of a son, if you are the father of a son, if you're the father of a black son, a mother of a black son, and you're not afraid, something's wrong with you. You need to be afraid, like for real. You should have genuine fear of how badly this can go, because it typically does.
Yeah.
So we got to try and find ways to work with them, hear them out. But another thing that we do is, the majority of our faculty are African American and Latin, period. And the majority of them are male. We work hard to make sure that when they come into the building, they're not going to just see one brother who is a security officer. No disrespect to the brother who's a security officer at whatever school it is, but that's not all we do. We have other stuff that we do too. So we have enough men who are black in particular, but black and Latin in general, who can honestly sometimes play good guy, bad guy, where it's like, all right, mom, I understand you mad at him, but can I just holler at you for a second? Like, can we just talk this through?
Mm-hmm.
There it is. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation with my distinguished panel as we talk about Black men in education. Stay with us. This is day 3 of the Culture's Black Men Summit, where we're redefining and celebrating Black manhood right here on the Black Star Network. Your comments coming up next. Stay with us.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network. Folks, welcome back to the Culture's Black Men Summit, where we're redefining and celebrating Black manhood. Today, we're talking about Black men in education, and I'm joined by an esteemed group of Black men who are doing their part to change the dynamic and the conversation and the culture in schools. Joining me is Dr. David Miller, who is an educator and author and founder and creator of the Dare to Be King curriculum. He's joining us today. Also joining us is Dr. Steve Perry, who is another educator and author and founder of the Capital Prep Schools. And also joining us is my brother Anthony Pena, who is an educator, administrator, as well as an advocate for Black students. The jewels that you dropped earlier, Dr. Perry, is something that I want us to kind of hold on to, right? Just the simple fact of understanding the cultural dynamics. And Brother David, it made me think of, we're going through so much as it is on other fronts. And I'm saying as Black folks, as Black America, we shouldn't have to fight to just get a simple education, man. This is getting ridiculous. I'm thinking about the story. We've talked about it here on the show. The little brother down in Texas who got suspended because of his hair, and he's 18 years old. They suspended this little brother because of, quote unquote, his conduct, his violation of the hair policy. They not only suspended him for 30 days, but they also have decided to put him into an alternative school for a few weeks as another punishment. And I mean, I'm thinking to myself, Brother David, this is 2023. His mother has filed a lawsuit against the state of Texas. But it's like, this is, I mean, at 18 years old, you're going through all of this drama because of your hair. I mean, he got the locks and, beautiful hairstyle. But it's just adding to, like, we're getting to a place, I would think, that we, like Dr. Perry said, man, look, I'm about to start my own thing. Or we're going to take our people out, take our children out. What's the resolution for a climate like this?
I mean, I think, and that's just the incident that you referenced is just one of so many. It would take an entire show to talk about all of the cultural collisions that occur in classrooms and in schools, particularly with Black males, teachers, and administrators. But Farajii, and for those that are listening, we're in the fight of our lives, man, when it comes down to how we educate and socialize our children, particularly Black males. And it's going to take courageous efforts like Dr. Perry's and some of the work that other Black men and women have done who have courageously created their own schools. My son who just graduated with his MBA from FAMU, Florida A&M University, he was educated in independent African-centered schools, first in Baltimore and in DC. So we need to ramp all of that up. We need to operationalize community-based rites of passage programs in communities. I just think that the system is not going to change. We have to do a better job of educating and mobilizing those of us who, Du Bois would call the talented 10th, those in our community that have the knowledge and insight to not only build and create our own schools, but also create these supplemental educational opportunities, whether it's, summer STEM academies, whether it's, you look at the Genius Academy in Oakland, where they're doing a lot of STEM work. And so I just think that, we got to get organized and do a better job of locking arms. We got to be able to fund our own freedom. A lot of this, we're going to end up having to pay for out of our own pocket, because the very systems that public dollars are going to educate, particularly Black boys, are failing. So again, we're in the fight of our lives, man. And if we're going to win, it's really going to take a more systematic and organized approach to identify what are the blind spots, what are the areas that we need to work on. And some of it is, how do we mobilize grassroots organizations to do some of this heavy lifting? You look at freedom schools, have a strong history across the country. All of those things and more are what we're going to need to ensure our children receive a world-class education.
Dr. Perry and Brother Anthony, if we're in the fight of our lives, right, and I truly believe, Brother David, on this one, that we are in the fight of our lives, but it seems like we're still confused as to which side we should be on and whose side should we be on, right? Like when we have these larger systemic institutional conversations, you have a sector of our people that may say, we just need to reform the system. Then you have a sector of our people that say, we need to destroy the system. And then you have a sector of our people that says, well, we can do both. And I'm wondering, is it really that clear cut, especially when you're talking about educating the future of our people?
We absolutely cannot reform the system. It can't be reformed. It is what it is. There are too many people who earn their livings by maintaining the system. We are often told that the reason why urban schools fail almost absolutely is because they don't have enough resources. That's just not true. It's fundamentally not true. Because if we were looking at the issue of resources as the determinant of whether or not a school would be successful, then we should send all of our kids to prison, because that's where we spend the most amount of money per pupil. So it's clearly not about money. We wouldn't be having this conversation on MSNBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, because they don't value our voices, but Black Star does. In the same way that Black-owned media needs to be in order for our stories to be told, Black-led and founded schools need to be the route out. We have to stop expecting that DeSantis is going to allow us to teach about African Americans in his schools. We have to stop being shocked by somebody saying something about our kids' hair in their schools. We have to stop being surprised that we have to go down to that school and get at them for coming after our son, our uncle, our father, our grandfather, our brother. How many more times do they have to show us who they are? How many more times? In the areas where we've been allowed to be successful, and I said it the way I meant it, playing sports, we've been successful. Doing music, we've been successful. I'll give you a really quick story. So we're looking to open a new school in Connecticut, actually in my hometown. We got the number one, we had the highest score for anyone who applied for a school. We had what the state referred to as historic turnout. Never before had the numbers been so high. At 11:48 p.m., just 12 minutes before the budget was passed for the state, two white legislators pulled our school out of the budget. Pulled it out. Man named Matt Lesser pulled our money out of the budget and didn't give it to anyone else. Just took it from us because they didn't want Black leaders to start a school in a community where the achievement gap is 67% of white kids can read at grade level, 26% of Black kids can read at grade level. We're going to keep asking. That's crazy. Put us on. So we're going to keep asking them, will you please stop being racist? No, I'm not asking anymore. I'm good.
Wow. That is crazy. That is absolutely insane. All right, let me get some comments from our online culture crew. Folks are checking in and they are listening loud and clear. Sharon Brooks, you checked in. You said, so grateful for schools like KIPP and other schools like Dr. Perry. They are doing a great service here in the Northeast. 6 days a week school program is an excellent asset for some communities. Sharon Brooks, thank you so much for checking in. And that's a nod to you, Dr. Perry, about the work that you're doing. Janelle, you checked in. You said educators, responding to our sister Lana, you said educators should be in charge of how curriculums are chosen, not commercial vendors. That's how we lost phonics in schools. Some random person with no evidence-based knowledge sold it to the state. I want to bring you into this part of this, Brother Anthony, because you are an administrator. You've been in those meetings. You've been at the table. You've been in the room where curriculums are determined. How is that process? How is that process determined? And to Janelle's point, talking about, commercial vendors, people who seem to capitalize off of school and, more importantly, capitalize off of the sharing of knowledge. Give us some insight into that space, bro.
Absolutely. And so I'm gonna speak broadly, but in general, school boards approve vendors, right? And so whoever has the biggest voice and gets the most money, then that's what gets allocated. And so they're right. Teachers do not have say in curriculum writing. There used to be a role of curriculum writers that were actually department heads, and now those roles have been removed in many districts across the country. So we don't have that avenue anymore. So what happens is that the superintendent, or what they call CEO now, or the chief academic officer, who does all the academic supervision, they decide what the curriculum is, and then they feed it down to the principal, who they have to feed it to the teachers, and then the kids have to eat something that they're allergic to, which is BS, right? And so we have a system that is not designed for our people. So whoever has the most money, when it comes to testing, you know about Pearson and others, all those people have big money. And not only are they big money in school boards, they have big money lobbies in Congress. Right. And so there's a reason why programs across the country go to Congress and lobby, because they funnel into school boards. And that is why a lot of things die or live in the school board meetings, particularly those who are appointed or elected. They have a lot of power and pull. And so therefore you're not going to find curriculum that besets our young people that need it, because there's money. There's money in failure, as Dr. Perry alluded to earlier, and there's definitely money in education. There are a lot of companies that profit off of Black children. Oh, yeah. They profit at NCAA sports in college. Now they profit off of Black dollars because they provide a curriculum where our young people cannot understand or digest it correctly. So therefore, it leads to a test metric system, which is Pearson, who then determines, let's test young people on something that's culturally irrelevant, knowing they're not going to pass because we have bias in our tests, and therefore, oh, there's an intervention program by this program. It's a cycle that continues to go on and on where everybody's connected to failure.
And let me ask you this question, Brother Anthony. When we have a lot of our people, and I've talked to Brother David about this and others in the educational space, but I know that by me, like my experience of working in the schools, I've often heard people who want to come into the schools offer some type of programming for the students, whether it's for a small portion of the students or for the whole school, and they got to go through a larger process. Is that something that needs to be encouraged? And is that something that you would advocate for us to do at this point, to at least change up the curriculum in the schools, or is that something that we should not be doing and really it's just a waste of time? Like where should we go with that?
I think it's two things, right? Yes, I think that, yes, talk to your principal, local community, and definitely advocate for a curriculum, because sometimes principals might have money in their budgets to just get a program, intervention program or a reading program that's appropriate, right? Now, if you want a bigger scale impact, we got to spend our money in lobbying as well. We have to counter what it is with our own money, and it might have to be, we have to sacrifice a lot of us to bring money up to get a counterbalance of what's out there. So yes, I will say both. Get in the schools, advocate your curriculum like Dare to Be King with Dr. Miller and others like those, but also start uniting pull our resources together and create our own school board, create our own system that can advocate for our own curriculum.
Can you do that? And I don't know. Can we do that? Can Brother David, Dr. Perry, can we go into some of these school districts and say, look, we are the Black Parents Committee?
So you know what's interesting? There's a book called The Strike That Changed New York. It's about the 1968 teachers strike, where they shut down the school system 2 times in 1 year because the Black parents in Ocean Hill, Brownsville wanted to do exactly what you're talking about. The same things that we're talking about have been done for generations. We've been lurching, trying to get our kids out of the system. And when we couldn't get them out of the system, we tried to create our own exit routes. And then they locked the doors and wouldn't let us out. So can we? Yes, you could run for your local board of education and you could create that in your local board of education. The public is you, it's us. But here's something to consider. One of the problems that we have right now is that we have too many people who don't realize that you can get the best curriculum in the world, but you got to have the people teach it. So let's use Connecticut, for instance, as a state. 4% of the teachers in the state of Connecticut are African American. 4% of the teachers are in the state of African American. Yet the state passed a law that says you have to teach African American history. Who the hell's going to teach it?
Right. Come on.
So who's going to teach it?
Come on. I mean, that's the question right there. Look, I got to take another quick pause, brothers. When we come forward, let's talk about what programs and what folks are doing around the country to create a greater pipeline of bringing more Black men into the classroom, and share with you some of the programs that are doing the work on the ground, and more importantly, getting you connected. So stay with us. The conversation about Black men in education continues right here on the Culture's Black Men Summit, where we're redefining and celebrating Black manhood, right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Culture's Black Men Summit, day 3 of our Black Men Summit, where we're talking about Black men in education. And as you can hear from our esteemed panelists, folks, of Dr. Steve Perry, Dr. David Miller, and Brother Anthony Pena, you can hear that this is not just about Black men in the educational space, but this is about all of us, that Black men can lead the way, but there is greater opportunity for all of us to be involved in every aspect of our child's development, especially in the school space. I want to kind of get back to some of the questions here, because folks are checking in, and my sister Suzette brought this piece up, and I want to get your take on this from all of you brothers around this idea of school choice, the school choice movement. First, Brother David, what's your take on the school choice movement? She said, for my sister Suzette speaks, she said, for majority of the Black community who want to see positive student achievement, should we support the school choice movement and focus on creating our own charter private schools, hold public schools accountable? What's your take on that, Brother David?
I mean, I think oftentimes the challenge is, what are the choices that are available? And I just think that we have to come, as you know, Dr. Perry alluded to earlier, we got to get out of this posture of we still are begging and asking when we should be demanding and executing. And there are a host of schools and efforts like some of the Freedom Schools. You look at like the Eagle Academy schools that David Banks, who's now the chancellor of New York City Public Schools, created, where they have an all-male academy in every borough in New York City and one in Newark, and are doing amazing things. And you have Dr. Steve Perry in Connecticut and a bunch of other folks who are creating these kinds of schools across the country. So, you know, for me, the issue is, I mean, we can keep trying to do this song and dance, but the system is not going to change. The system is not going to radically start hiring more Black male teachers. And as someone alluded to earlier, I used to be a Black male teacher in the Baltimore City Public Schools. I was a social studies teacher, but they not only was I teaching social studies, sometimes they would be asking me to move boxes or go out walk some teachers to the parking lot, or stand at the front door. And so I was security guard, a pastor. They had me doing everything because I was one of only a few Black male teachers in the building. I just think as a community, we got to come to the realization that we're trying to fit a square in a circle. It's not working, and it's not going to work.
We have to fight for school choice. It is the only way. Without school choice, you and I are not having this conversation. I'm at our school in Harlem. 5 blocks down to the right is Jeff Canada's school. There's no him and me if we don't get to create our own schools. There are not 400 kids in this building if we don't get to create our own schools. If we don't do this, this is our right. This is our right to make the determination as to how it is that our children are educated. I just don't think that our community fully has had the opportunity to get what it is that we have coming. Our kids are as smart as anybody else's, and are smarter than a few. If they're able to eke out the education that they are in the circumstances where they're being the most disciplined, most suspended, most expelled, least likely to take college preparatory classes, if they make it to high school, and still they're able to be successful in any way, then imagine what could happen when we put them in academic experiences where people believe in them. So we have to fight for our own schools. We have to. What else is there? It's like when you go to a banquet and you go and it's a particular establishment and it's like, the food is terrible here. What did y'all think was going to happen? You thought you were going to cook like your grandmother did? Wow. You knew the chicken was going to be dry. You knew you were going to have your girl take the hot. Like, you knew that's what was going to happen here. So here's the solution. Don't go there. Open your own. Open your own. Why do we always have to beg people? We look silly. It looks old. I mean, it's old to me. I'd rather have a couple small schools than to send my kids to schools where I know they're going to get dogged. I know they're going to get dogged. I know it.
Is that though, Dr. Perry? Is that like cultural laziness for us to, or are we tired? You know what I'm saying? Like when some people blame it on the parents. One of our crew members, Real Brooklyn, he said it's typical. He said this. Doesn't matter what school, the curriculum will only be effective if parents are willing to be involved in their kids' lives. You can't put a value on parenting because it's priceless. So if we're not moving into that space,
it's not that easy. Yeah. Again, as somebody who's had to get in between parents who do and say some really wild things, do some wild things. I'm not going to cast aspersions on parents as a group, because if you're a parent, one thing you know is being a parent is hard as hell. And it is as humbling an experience as you will ever endeavor into. So I'm not going to do that because I'm a father. So I still, as a father, you can as an educator. But I will say this. What we do have to do is we do have to encourage our parents to participate in a meaningful way. But Dr. King made it clear in his final book, Where Do We Go From Here, Community of Chaos, when he said that a school should be so good that you should not be able to tell who that child's parents are.
Woo! Woo! I love that, Brother Anthony. I love that. What's your take on school choice, bro? Oh, Brother David, you got something you want to add to that?
Really quick before you jump over to Brother Anthony. You know, the conversation is always interesting because white folks are starting their own schools in communities that they gentrify every day. They will gentrify a neighborhood, and then instead of sending their children to private school, they will apply for a charter or open up an independent school all over the country. When white folks do it, it's their right, but when we do it, we're being subversive or something is wrong with us.
Absolutely. Brother Anthony, what's your take very quickly, bro?
I mean, the two brothers are right. I mean, the thing about school choice came out of after we had integration of Black students into schools. White parents went up there and pulled their kids out of school and started their own schools. So, because they didn't want to deal with what was going on of integration. So why can we not have our own schools as well? Let's educate our own people, give them the support they need so they can be more successful. So I'm all for school choice and make sure we get the money we deserve to support our young people, because the system is falling apart. It's only a matter, Minister Farrakhan talks about in the fall of America, that the America's headed towards a disaster. We see that in foreign policy wise. We see that in education now. Look at our reading levels in math. We're not top 10 in the country and around the world. So what do you expect is going to happen in our schools? It's like going to McDonald's every day and saying, I have diarrhea every day. Are you going to keep eating at McDonald's, or are you going to just try to do something else, right? So at this point, we see that we're getting sick from the school systems in America. Let's get our own, fund it, and let's support it. I'm asking, LeBron James, what he's doing there. Yes, there's some issues with some academic things, but those are deeper conversations around that. But do what you have to do to educate and protect our young people, because the future is dim right now if we don't get in right now.
Absolutely. We got a few moments left, and I want to talk about how we can create a pipeline, rebuild the Black male teacher pipeline. There are a number of organizations that have done this all around the country, and I'm sure you brothers know that. There's Teacher Village here. I'm here in Los Angeles, so there's the Teacher Village here in Los Angeles. They're doing some work to recruit, retain, and to train.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all. All momentum we have now. We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?